The morning sun rose over the colony of Terminus 7, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. It was a beautiful world, far from Earth, where humans had built their homes among the mountains and valleys. The year was 2847, and humanity had learned to live peacefully with dozens of alien species across the galaxy. Ji-won stood at the edge of the valley, watching the sky. She was a scientist who studied alien creatures, and she had spent most of her life on this colony. Her hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her face showed the calm of someone who had found her purpose in life. She was waiting for someone special. A shadow fell across the valley. Something massive moved through the clouds. Then she appeared. Velra, the star dragon, descended from the sky with grace that seemed impossible for something so large. Her scales shimmered like the night sky filled with stars. She was bigger than any ship the humans owned, and she was ancient beyond human understanding. The dragon landed softly in the clearing where Ji-won waited. Her eyes, deep and knowing, looked at the human with warmth. Velra lowered her head, and Ji-won reached out to touch the scales that felt like warm metal under her fingers. "Good morning, old friend," Ji-won said softly. Velra made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. She didn't speak with words. Instead, images and feelings filled Ji-won's mind. Happiness, peace, home. 20 years had passed since Ji-won found Velra's egg on an exploration mission. The egg had been abandoned, cold and alone on a dead moon. Ji-won should have left it there. The rules said so, but she couldn't. She brought it back to the colony and kept it warm. When the egg hatched, everyone feared what would happen. Dragons were creatures of legend, powerful and dangerous. But Velra was different. She was curious about humans. She watched them work and play. She learned their languages and their customs. And slowly she became part of their family. The colony had grown under Velra's protection. She would fly into space and push away asteroids that might hit the colony. When storms came, she would shield the buildings with her massive body. When ships broke down in space, she would guide them home. The humans loved her, and she loved them back. 11 other humans joined Ji-won in the clearing that morning. They came every day to spend time with Velra. Each of them had their own bond with the dragon. Hyun-woo was the oldest among them, a man in his late 40s with gray in his hair and wisdom in his eyes. He had been a soldier once, back on Earth, but now he ran the colony. He treated Velra with the same respect he gave to any leader. Dae-ho was quiet, a man who preferred machines to people. But with Velra, he would talk for hours about the stars and the way things worked. He had helped build special platforms where Velra could rest comfortably. Minji was young and strong, a doctor who had saved many lives. She would check Velra's health, making sure the dragon stayed well. Velra would let her climb on her back and examine her scales, trusting her completely. Tae-yang was the pilot, cocky and loud, but his eyes were always kind when he looked at Velra. He would fly his ship alongside her, and they would race through the clouds together. Hana grew food for the colony. She was gentle and soft-spoken, but her gardens were the most beautiful on the planet. Velra loved to watch her work, sending images of other worlds where strange plants grew. Sung-ho handled all communications. He was young and brilliant with technology. He had created a device that could translate Velra's thoughts into words that everyone could understand. Yuna was in charge of security. She was tough and serious, but she would smile when Velra played with the colony's children. She made sure no one would ever threaten their home. Jinwoo managed supplies and kept everything organized. He was practical and careful, always planning ahead. He made sure Velra had everything she needed. Sua spoke many languages and helped when aliens visited the colony. She could understand Velra's thoughts better than anyone except Ji-won. They would have long conversations about philosophy and the meaning of life. Quan was the weapons expert, though he hated violence. He kept the colony's defenses ready, hoping they would never be needed. Velra appreciated his peaceful heart. Yunji was the youngest, but her mind was sharp as a knife. She could solve problems that stumped everyone else. Velra would show her visions of ancient civilizations, and Yunji would figure out how they worked. These 12 humans and 1 dragon had become a family. They ate together, laughed together, and shared their lives. Velra told them stories about the universe when it was young. She spoke of stars being born and galaxies dying. She shared wisdom from 8,000 years of life. In return, the humans taught Velra about small things, about jokes and music, about how mortals loved knowing their lives were short, about the beauty of change and growth. For all her power and age, Velra had been alone for so long. These humans gave her something she never had before: a family. That morning, they sat together in the clearing as they did every day. The children from the colony came to play around Velra's tail. She would lift them gently and let them slide down her scales like a living playground. The adults would bring food and share their plans for the day. Everything was peaceful. Everything was perfect. Then the alarms began to sound. Hyunwoo's communication device buzzed. His face went pale as he listened. "Unknown ships entering the system," he said. "Military configuration." Velra lifted her head, her eyes focusing on the sky. She could see farther than any human technology. Her thoughts filled their minds with warning, danger, threat, wrong. The ships appeared in the sky like dark knives cutting through clouds. They were sleek and cruel-looking, designed for war. Markings on their hulls showed they belonged to the Kral Dominion, an empire from another part of the galaxy. A message came through on all frequencies. A harsh voice spoke in broken human language. "The creature in this system is now property of the Kral Dominion. Surrender it immediately or face consequences." Hyunwoo stepped forward. "This is a peaceful colony under Galactic Council protection. The Dragon Velra is a free being and our friend. Leave now." Laughter came through the speakers. "Free? It is a beast, a tool. We will take it. Resist, and we will take your colony too." Velra rose to her full height. Her scales began to glow with inner light. She sent out a thought so powerful that even the Kral ships could feel it. "I am not yours. Leave." But the Kral were arrogant. They had studied Velra from a distance. They had built weapons specifically to hurt her. They believed they could capture her and use her as a weapon of war. "Go to your resting cave," Jiwon pleaded with Velra. "Let us handle this diplomatically." Velra looked at her human friend with ancient eyes. She sent feelings of love and gratitude. Then she flew toward the mountains, trying to lead the danger away from the colony. The Kral ships followed. The 12 humans watched in horror as the battle began in the distance. They saw flashes of light and heard the roar of weapons. Velra fought back, her cosmic fire melting Kral ships. But there were too many. They had come prepared. Neural disruptors hit Velra, weapons designed to cause pain beyond imagination. Her screams echoed through the minds of every human in the colony. Children cried. Adults fell to their knees. The 12 ran toward the mountains, but they were too slow. Too late. By the time they arrived, Velra lay unconscious, wrapped in energy chains. The Kral ships were dragging her toward their carrier. Jiwon screamed and ran forward, but Yuna held her back. They could only watch as the carrier's bay doors closed around their friend, around their family. A final message came from the Kral. "The beast belongs to us now. This system is ours. Interfere, and we will return to destroy you all." Then the ships jumped to hyperspace, taking Velra with them. The 12 humans stood in the ruined clearing. Around them, scorch marks showed where the battle had happened. But the worst damage was in their hearts. They had lost her. They had lost family. And something old and terrible began to wake up inside them. Something humanity had buried for centuries, hoping never to need again. The capacity for war. The colony was silent that night. No one spoke. No one could. The absence of Velra hung over them like a dark cloud. Children asked when she would come back. Parents had no answers to give. The 12 gathered in the council chamber. It was a simple room with a round table where important decisions were made. But tonight felt different. Tonight, something was changing. Hyunwoo stood at the window, looking at the mountains where Velra used to rest. His jaw was tight, and his hands were clenched into fists. He had seen war before, many years ago. He knew what it looked like. He knew what it cost. "We need to contact the Galactic Council," Jinwoo said. He was always the practical one. "They have laws against this. The Kraul broke the peace." "The Council will talk for months," Yuna replied. Her voice was flat and cold. "They'll have meetings and debates and committees. By the time they do anything, Velra will be dead." "Or worse," Minji added quietly. "They'll break her, turn her into a weapon, make her forget us." Jiwon sat with her head in her hands. She hadn't stopped crying since they took Velra. "This is my fault," she whispered. "I brought her here. I made her stay. If she had been alone, they might have left her in peace." Daeho put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't talk like that. She chose to stay. She chose us. That's not your fault." "Then whose fault is it?" Jiwon looked up, her eyes red and angry. "They came to our home, they hurt our family, and we just stood there and watched." Silence fell over the room. The truth of her words cut deep. They had been helpless, powerless, and it hurt worse than any physical wound. Yoonji had been quiet, staring at her datapad. Now she looked up. "I've been studying the Kraul," she said. "Their empire, their military, their culture. Do you know what I found?" Everyone turned to look at her. "They respect only strength. They see kindness as weakness. They take what they want and dare others to stop them." She paused. "And they've forgotten what humanity used to be." "What do you mean?" Sung-ho asked. Yoonji pulled up data on the main screen. Earth's history. Before we joined the Galactic Council, before we became peaceful. Images flashed across the screen. Ancient battles, old weapons, wars that lasted generations. Humans were apex predators on their planet. We hunted animals by chasing them until they collapsed from exhaustion. We threw rocks with enough accuracy to kill. We created weapons and strategies that other species still study in horror. "That was a long time ago," Suah said softly. "Was it?" Yoonji's eyes were fierce. "We stopped fighting because we chose to, not because we couldn't. The capacity is still there, in our DNA, in our instincts. We just buried it under centuries of peace." Hyunwoo turned from the window. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we can get her back." Yoonji stood up. "We can fight the Kraul. We can win. It won't be easy. Most of us will probably die, but we can do it." 12 civilians against a military empire? Kwon shook his head. "That's insane." "Yes," Jiwon said suddenly. She stood up, and there was fire in her eyes. "It is insane. It's impossible. It's suicide." She looked around at each of them. "But she's worth it. She's family, and I won't leave family behind." "Neither will I," Minji said. "Or me," Tae-yang added. One by one, they all nodded. Even Jin-woo, who liked to plan for every possibility. Even Kwon, who hated violence. Even Suah, who believed in diplomacy above all else. Hyun-woo looked at them, and something in his expression changed. The peaceful administrator faded away. The old soldier came back. "Then we stop being civilians. Starting now, we're a military unit. We train, we plan. We become what we need to be." "The council will try to stop us," Suah warned. Let them try, Yuna said. We're not asking for permission. Over the next days, the colony changed. The 12 worked without sleep, preparing for war. Each person used their skills in new ways. Sung-Ho hacked into Crawl communication networks. It wasn't easy. Their encryption was military grade, but he was patient and clever. After 2 days, he broke through. Suddenly, they could hear Crawl communications. They learned the language, they learned the protocols. They found out where Velra was being taken, the Crawl homeworld itself. Daeho went to work on their ships. The colony had 3 civilian vessels meant for cargo and exploration. He stripped them down and rebuilt them. Old military blueprints from Earth's archives guided his hands. He added weapons. He reinforced hulls. He modified engines to go faster than safety regulations allowed. When he was done, the ships looked peaceful on the outside. But inside, they were weapons of war. Quan requisitioned mining equipment, plasma cutters, explosives for clearing rock, heavy machinery. All of it could be repurposed for combat. He hated every moment of it, but he did it anyway. For Velra. Hana used her knowledge of chemistry to create things that made her hands shake. Compounds that could burn through metal, gases that could disable life support systems. She cried while she worked, but she didn't stop. Minji gathered medical supplies, combat drugs that would let them keep fighting even when wounded, nanobots that could repair tissue, pain blockers. She prepared for the worst, hoping she wouldn't need any of it, knowing she would need all of it. Taeyang studied jump routes. He found paths that avoided Council patrol zones, shortcuts through dangerous space that civilian ships normally avoided, ways to move fast and unseen. Yuna trained them all in combat. None of them were soldiers, but she taught them how to fight, how to move, how to survive. She was harsh and demanding, because she knew mercy in training meant death in battle. Sua studied Crawl culture, looking for weaknesses. She learned that their society was rigid. Officers couldn't question orders. Soldiers followed protocols exactly. Innovation was seen as disobedience. That rigidity could be exploited. Yunji coordinated everything. She created plans, backup plans, plans for when the backup plans failed. She thought of every possibility, every contingency. Her mind never stopped working. Jinwoo organized supplies, food, water, ammunition, everything they would need. He packed their ships efficiently, making room for necessities while removing comforts. They wouldn't need comfort where they were going. Jiwon did something different. She went through all the recordings they had of Velra, every conversation, every shared moment. She made copies and distributed them to ships throughout the galaxy. If they failed, if they all died, at least the universe would remember Velra, would know what the Crawl had done. On the night before they were ready to leave, the 12 met one final time in the council chamber. The ships were ready. The weapons were loaded. The plans were made. Hyunwoo placed a knife on the table. In old Earth traditions, he said, warriors would make blood oaths before battle. They would promise to stand together, to never abandon each other. He picked up the knife and cut his palm. Blood dripped onto the table. I swear I will bring Velra home or die trying. One by one, they each cut their palms and made the same oath. Their blood mixed together on the table. 12 humans binding themselves to an impossible mission. We're not soldiers, Jiwon said, looking at each of them. We're not trained warriors. We're farmers and doctors and engineers. We're just people who love someone they took from us. That's what makes us dangerous, Yunji added. Soldiers fight for duty. We fight for love, and love makes you do impossible things. They walked together to the ships, the Persistence, the Defiance, and the Reckoning. Names chosen carefully. Names that told the universe what was coming. The rest of the colony came to see them off. Old people who remembered Earth's warrior past. Young people who had only known peace, children who drew pictures of Velra and pressed them into the hands of the 12. "Bring her home," a little girl said to Jiwon. "I will," Jiwon promised, "or I'll die trying." The 12 boarded their ships, engines powered up. The colony watched as the 3 vessels rose into the sky, then accelerated toward the stars. Inside the Persistence, Hyunwoo sat in the commander's chair. Around him, Ji-won, Dae-ho, Minji, and Yoonji prepared for the journey ahead. "Any regrets?" he asked them. "Only one," Ji-won said, "that we didn't do this sooner." The ships jumped to hyperspace, leaving Terminus 7 behind, leaving safety behind, leaving peace behind. 12 humans were going to war against an empire. They had no army, no support, no chance of survival. But they had something the Krall didn't understand, something that had made humanity survive and thrive on a deadly planet, something that had carried them to the stars. Stubbornness, creativity, and love so fierce it would burn galaxies if necessary. The Krall had taken their family. Now they would learn what happened when you made that mistake. Now they would learn what humanity really was beneath the peaceful surface. Now they would learn to fear. The 3 ships traveled through hyperspace for 2 days before reaching their first target, a Krall supply station in the outer reaches, far from the Empire's heart. Sung-ho had intercepted communications, showing that the carrier which took Velra had stopped there for refueling. "It's heavily defended," Yoonji reported, studying the sensor data. 4 guard ships, automated defense platforms, probably 50 soldiers inside. "And we're 12 people in cargo ships," Jinwoo said. He wasn't complaining, just stating facts. 13 against 50, Taeyang corrected with a grin. "I count double." Despite everything, a few of them smiled. It was good to know some things didn't change. Even facing impossible odds, Taeyang was still Taeyang. "We can't win a straight fight," Hyunwoo said, "so we won't fight straight. We'll use what humans do best. We'll cheat." The plan was simple. The Defiance, piloted by Taeyang, would approach the station broadcasting a distress signal. The Krall, following their protocols, would send a boarding party to investigate. That's when things would get interesting. Taeyang brought the Defiance in slowly, making it look damaged. Sparks flew from deliberately broken panels. The ship wobbled as if the engines were failing. He was a good pilot, and he made it look real. The Krall guard ships surrounded him. A harsh voice came over the radio. "Identify yourself." "This is Civilian Transport Delta 9, Taeyang lied smoothly. "We had an engine malfunction. Requesting assistance." There was a pause. Then, "Prepare to be boarded." A Krall shuttle approached and docked with the Defiance. 6 soldiers entered the ship, weapons ready. They found Taeyang waiting for them, hands raised in surrender. "Please," he said, "I just need help with repairs." The Krall leader lowered his weapon slightly. These stupid mammals were no threat. "Show us the engine room," he ordered. Taeyang led them deeper into the ship, into the cargo bay, and that's when he smiled. "You know what humans are good at?" he asked. "Silence," the Krall ordered. "Setting traps," Taeyang finished. He dove behind a cargo container. The bay exploded. Hana's chemical compounds detonated in a chain reaction. The blast wasn't strong enough to destroy the ship, but it tore through the Krall boarding party. More importantly, the explosion vented into the docking tunnel, ripping through the Krall shuttle and into the station's docking bay. Alarms blared across the station. Fire suppression systems activated. In the chaos, the Persistence and the Reckoning dropped out of hyperspace right on top of the guard ships. The Krall hadn't expected an attack. They were still trying to understand what happened at the docking bay when Daeho's modified weapons opened fire. One guard ship exploded immediately. Another took critical damage. Yuna piloted the Reckoning with cold precision, targeting the defense platforms. Each shot counted. They couldn't waste ammunition. Quan had modified their weapons, but they had limited firepower compared to military ships. The remaining guard ships tried to fight back, but Tai Yang was already moving. The Defiance, damaged but functional, came around and hit them from behind. In space combat, position was everything, and the humans had positioned perfectly. Within 5 minutes, the guard ships were destroyed or disabled. The defense platforms were offline, and a boarding team was ready to enter the station. Yuna led the assault team. Herself, Quan, Daeho, and Jin Woo. They wore modified mining suits that Daeho had reinforced. Not real armor, but better than nothing. They carried plasma cutters modified to work as weapons. They looked like civilians playing soldier. But appearances could deceive. They breached the station through the damaged docking bay. Krall soldiers were waiting, but they were disorganized. The explosion had broken their formation. Their protocols didn't cover this situation. Yuna had studied human military history. She knew tactics from 100 wars. The Krall expected enemies to attack from the front, to follow honor codes. Instead, she used the environment. She shot out lights, plunging sections into darkness. She vented atmosphere, forcing the Krall to seal their suits. She used every dirty trick humanity had ever invented. Quan hated every moment of it. But he fought anyway. When his plasma cutter overheated, he used his hands. When a Krall soldier got close, he remembered Yuna's training. Humans were good at close combat. They had evolved for it. Daeho and Jin Woo covered them with suppressing fire. They didn't need to be great shots. They just needed to keep the Krall pinned down while Yuna advanced. The Krall were stronger, their armor was better. Their weapons were more advanced. But they had never fought humans before. They didn't know what to expect. They expected enemies to retreat when wounded. Humans fought harder when hurt, fueled by adrenaline and Minji's combat drugs. They expected enemies to surrender when outnumbered. Humans used being outnumbered as a tactical advantage, forcing the enemy into narrow spaces where numbers didn't matter. They expected enemies to follow military protocols. Humans made up new strategies on the spot, adapting faster than the Krall could counter. Within an hour, the station was secured. 30 Krall soldiers were dead or captured. The humans had won their first battle, but it had cost them. Jin Woo had taken a plasma burn to his leg. Daeho's ribs were broken. Quan's hands were badly bruised. They were hurt, but they were alive. Minji patched them up while Su'a interrogated the station commander. She didn't torture him. She didn't need to. She just talked to him. "Do you know what humans are?" she asked in perfect Krall language. The commander glared at her. "Weak mammals. You got lucky." "Lucky?" Su'a smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "Let me tell you about human history. For thousands of years we fought each other. Wars that lasted decades. Battles that killed millions. We invented weapons so terrible that we banned ourselves from using them. We laid siege to cities for years, starving them out. We crossed oceans in wooden boats to conquer new lands. We survived plagues and ice ages and our own worst instincts." She leaned closer. "You took something we love. That was your first mistake. Your second mistake was thinking we would accept it. Humans don't accept loss. We don't give up. We don't stop. We will follow you across the galaxy. We will find you in your homes. We will take back what you stole. And we will make sure the entire universe knows what happens when you hurt human family." The commander was silent for a moment. Then he started talking. He told them where Velra was being taken. The Krall homeworld, the Imperial Research Complex. The most heavily defended location in their entire empire. "You can't attack the homeworld," the commander said. "You'll die." "Probably," Su'a agreed. "But we'll die trying. Can you say the same?" They left the station intact but disabled. The survivors would send messages, would warn the Krall Empire that humans were coming. That was fine. Let them know. Let them be afraid. News of the attack spread quickly through Krall space. The leadership was outraged. 12 humans had destroyed a military station? Impossible. Unacceptable. Insulting. They sent a hunter squadron. 20 ships, all military grade. Their mission, find and destroy the human rebels. The squadron found the Persistence 3 days later, drifting near an asteroid field. It looked damaged, helpless, easy prey. "This is too easy," the squadron leader said. But his orders were clear. Eliminate the humans. The squadron closed in, weapons charging. That's when Yunji triggered her trap. The asteroids weren't asteroids. They were mines. Daeho had built them from old station debris, disguised them perfectly. When the squadron entered the field, the mines activated. Explosions ripped through the crawl formation. Half the ships were destroyed instantly. The survivors broke formation, trying to escape. That's when all 3 human ships dropped their stealth fields. They had been hiding among the asteroids, powered down, invisible to sensors. The battle was short and brutal. The Kral ships were better armed, but the humans had surprise. They had position, and they had nothing to lose. Taeyang flew like a madman, pushing his ship beyond its limits. He laughed as he dodged plasma fire, as he threaded between explosions. This was what he was born for. Yuna's shots were precise. Every burst counted. Every target was carefully chosen. She fought like a machine, cold and efficient. Hyunwoo coordinated them all, turning 3 ships into a single fighting unit. He had learned this skill in old wars, and it came back to him like breathing. When the battle ended, no Kral survived. The human ships were damaged, but functional. And they had sent a message. They could be killed, but they couldn't be stopped. The Galactic Council became aware of the situation. They sent peacekeeping ships to intercede. They called both humans and Kral to negotiations. Earth's representative spoke before the Council. "The Kral started this," he said. "They attacked a peaceful colony. They kidnapped a sentient being. They threatened innocent people. Humans tried to report this through proper channels. The Council did nothing. So humans took action themselves. This is not a war of conquest. This is a rescue mission. When it's over, when our family member is safely home, we will stop, but not before." The Council debated for days. In the end, they did nothing. They couldn't support the humans without setting a dangerous precedent. But they couldn't support the Kral either, because the humans were right. Meanwhile, the Kral Emperor made a decision. He would make an example of the dragon. "Show these mammals what happened when you defied the Dominion." He ordered Velra brought out of her cell. He ordered her tortured. And he ordered it broadcast across the galaxy. The 12 humans received the transmission. They watched, helpless, as Velra suffered. Her screams filled their minds across the impossible distance of space. They saw her pain, her fear, her memory of them. Something broke inside the 12, or maybe something crystallized, made them harder, colder, more focused. "No more stealth," Hyunwoo said. His voice was dead calm. "No more tactics. We go straight for the homeworld. We get her out, or we die trying." No one argued. They all felt the same way. They set course for the Kral homeworld, the heart of the Empire, the most heavily defended planet in their space. 12 humans in 3 damaged ships against an entire empire's military. The odds were impossible. The mission was suicide. Victory was unlikely, but they didn't care anymore. They were done being clever, done being cautious. Done being anything except what they were, humans who had lost family and would burn the universe to get her back. The Kral would learn a lesson that day. A lesson every predator eventually learns. Never corner prey with nothing left to lose. 3 small ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kral system. Behind them lay a trail of destroyed stations and defeated squadrons. Ahead lay the homeworld of an empire that had never lost a war. Alarms screamed across every military installation on the planet. The humans had come. 12 mammals in civilian ships dared to attack the heart of the Dominion. The Kral Emperor watched from his throne room, amused. This would be entertaining. He would let the fleet destroy them slowly, let the universe see what happened to those who defied him. The Kral fleet numbered in the hundreds. Warships built for conquest, battle cruisers armed with weapons that could crack planets. All of them began moving toward the 3 human ships. Inside the Persistence, the 12 humans prepared for their final battle. "Any last words?" Tae Yang asked. He was strapped into the pilot seat of the Reckoning, ready for what came next. "See you on the other side," Sung-ho replied from his station. "We're getting her back," Ji-won said. Her voice was steel. "No matter what." The plan was simple because anything complex would fail. They would use speed and surprise to break through the orbital defenses. They would crash land directly at the Imperial Research Complex. They would fight their way to Velra. They would free her. They would probably die doing it. But that was acceptable. Hyun-woo gave the order. "All ships. Maximum acceleration." The 3 ships suddenly surged forward. Dae-ho had modified their engines far beyond safety limits. The acceleration would kill most species. Humans, with their persistence hunter biology, could barely survive it. Barely was enough. The Kral fleet expected the humans to fight, to dodge, to try some trick. They didn't expect the humans to simply charge straight at them at impossible speed. The Reckoning, with Tae Yang and Sung-ho aboard, became a missile. It tore through space faster than the Kral could track. Their weapons fired, but Tae Yang dodged with skill born of flying races with a dragon. He wove through the deadly fire like he was dancing. The outer defense grid loomed ahead, massive weapons platforms that could destroy a fleet. Tae Yang aimed directly at them. "It's been an honor," he said to Sung-ho. "Likewise," Sung-ho replied. The Reckoning hit the defense grid at near-light speed. The impact was beyond description. The ship's reinforced hull held together for exactly long enough. The explosion tore a hole in the defensive network, a hole that the Persistence and the Defiance poured through. Tae Yang and Sung-ho died instantly, but they had opened the path. The Kral fleet followed, but they couldn't use their heaviest weapons, not this close to their own planet. The humans had made the battlefield work for them one last time. Dae-ho piloted the Persistence toward the atmosphere. The ship was already damaged. Warning alarms blared. The hull was heating up from atmospheric entry. Fire surrounded them. "We're not going to make it," someone shouted. "Yes, we are," Dae-ho said calmly. He had made peace with death days ago. Now he just needed to get his friends close enough. The Persistence screamed through the sky, leaving a trail of fire. Dae-ho aimed for the Imperial Research Complex, visible from orbit. The building was huge, fortress-like, surrounded by defensive walls. The ship hit the ground in the main courtyard. The impact was catastrophic. The hull shattered. Systems exploded. Dae-ho and Jin-woo in the front of the ship took the full force of it. They died protecting the others behind them. But the others survived. Barely. Broken. Bleeding. But alive. The Defiance, piloted by Yuna, came in hot behind them. She aimed for the eastern wall of the complex. The ship crashed through reinforced stone and metal, creating a second breach point. The cargo hold was filled with Hana's chemical weapons. On impact, they released. Toxic clouds billowed through the complex, forcing Kral soldiers to evacuate entire sections. Hana's last gift to her friends. Hana didn't survive the crash, but her sacrifice gave the others a chance. 7 humans climbed from the wreckage of the Persistence. Hyun-woo, Ji-won, Minji, Yuna, Sua, Kwan, and Yoonji. 5 others had already died, but they couldn't stop to mourn. Not yet. They were inside the complex. Velra was somewhere in the depths of this massive building. They had to find her. Minji checked everyone quickly. Hyun-woo had internal bleeding. Sua's arm was broken. Kwan could barely walk. They were all running on combat drugs and stubbornness. "Can you fight?" Hyun-woo asked them. They all nodded. Pain didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered except Velra. They moved through the complex like ghosts. Every Kral soldier who saw them died. Not because the humans were better fighters, because the humans had already accepted death. That made them unstoppable. Quan ran out of ammunition and fought with his hands. Yuna took a plasma bolt to the shoulder and kept firing with her other arm. Minji performed first aid on herself while providing covering fire. The Kral threw everything at them. Elite guards in powered armor, war robots designed to kill, automated defense systems. But humans had one advantage the Kral never considered. Humans were creative. Every environment was a weapon. Every tool was potential combat equipment. Humans had spent thousands of years learning to kill with whatever was available. That knowledge didn't disappear just because they became peaceful. They used the complex's own systems against it. Yunji hacked into the environmental controls, venting atmosphere in targeted sections. Sua reprogrammed the robots to attack their own forces. Yuna turned security lasers into weapons. They left a trail of destruction behind them, but they kept moving deeper, following Yunji's maps, following Jiwan's connection to Velra. They could feel her, distant and in pain, but alive. The Kral couldn't understand what they were seeing. These weren't soldiers, these were civilians. How were they fighting like this? They didn't understand that humans could become soldiers in an instant, that the line between civilian and warrior was thin for a species that evolved as hunters. Hyunwoo took a direct hit that should have killed him. The combat drugs kept him on his feet long enough to return fire and eliminate the threat. Then he collapsed. Minji tried to save him, but the damage was too severe. "Go," he whispered. "Get her out." "We can carry you," Jiwan said. "No time." He smiled, blood on his teeth. "I'll hold this position. Buy you minutes. Use them well." They left him there, firing until his last breath, buying them time with his life. 6 humans continued deeper into the complex. Every meter cost them. Sua fell next, taking down 3 Kral guards to protect Yuna's advance. Her broken arm had made her slower. Slower meant dead. 5 remained. They reached the central chamber. Massive doors, sealed tight. Behind them, they could feel Velra. Quan and Yunji worked on the doors while the others defended them. Quan's hands were shaking from pain and exhaustion, but he kept working. Yunji's mind raced through security protocols, finding weaknesses. The doors opened. Inside, Velra hung suspended by energy chains. Her scales were dull. Her eyes were glazed with pain. Neural inhibitors covered her body, keeping her powerless. When she saw them, her eyes widened. "Foolish humans," her thoughts whispered weakly. "You should have let me go." "Family doesn't abandon family," Jiwan said. Tears ran down her face. "We told you that." The Emperor arrived with his personal guard. He had been watching the humans' progress, fascinated. These weak creatures had fought through his fortress. Impressive. Futile, but impressive. "You are too late," he said. "The dragon is ours. Soon, she will forget you. She will serve the Dominion." Yuna raised her weapon at him, but she was out of ammunition. She stood there, defiant, holding an empty gun. Quan and Yunji worked on the chains. The systems were complex, designed by Kral's best engineers. But Eunji was smarter than all of them, and Quan knew how to break things. "You mammals are persistent," the Emperor said. "I will admit that, but persistence means nothing against power." Jiwan stepped forward, unarmed, facing the Emperor. She was covered in blood and ash. She had watched 7 friends die. She had nothing left except will. "You don't understand," she said. "That's why you've already lost." "Lost? I have the dragon. I have my empire. You have nothing but corpses." "We have love," Jiwan replied. "You can't understand it. Your species doesn't feel it. But love makes you do impossible things. It makes you cross galaxies. It makes you face death without fear. It makes you strong when you should be broken." The final chain broke. Velra was free. What happened next would be told in 1,000 languages across the galaxy. The dragon, ancient and powerful, rose from her restraints. 8,000 years of life, centuries of accumulated power, and now absolute rage. Her roar shattered windows across the capital city. Her scales began to glow with inner fire. The neural inhibitors fell away like paper. The Emperor tried to run. Velra caught him gently in her claws. "You wanted to weaponize me," she thought at him. "You failed to understand. I chose peace. These humans taught me love, and you hurt them. You hurt my family." She didn't kill him. Not yet. First, she made him feel everything. Everything she had suffered, everything the humans had sacrificed. She broadcast it directly into his mind, into the minds of every crawl on the planet. She made them understand what they had done, made them feel it. Then she left, carrying Ji-won gently in her claws, carrying the only human who had survived. Behind them, the complex burned. The Emperor lay broken, alive but shattered. The Kral military scrambled to respond, but they were in chaos. Velra flew into space, her massive wings carrying her through the void. She could survive in space naturally. Ji-won couldn't, but Velra created a protective field around her. They left the Kral homeworld behind, left the Empire in ruins, left a scar so deep it would never heal. 11 humans had died, but they had won. They had proven that humans, when pushed far enough, could do the impossible. They had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Ji-won woke in the medical bay of Terminus 7 3 weeks later. Her body ached in ways she didn't know were possible. Every breath hurt. Every movement reminded her of the battle. But she was alive. Minji sat beside her bed. No, not Minji. Minji was dead. This was someone else from the colony, a younger doctor whose name Ji-won couldn't remember. "Where is she?" Ji-won asked. Her voice was rough from screaming. "Outside," the doctor said softly. "She hasn't left since bringing you back." Ji-won tried to stand. Pain shot through her legs. The doctor tried to stop her, but Ji-won pushed past. She had to see Velra, had to know the dragon was really safe. She limped outside, into the valley where they used to meet. Velra was there, curled around the clearing. Her scales still looked dull. Healing would take time. When Velra saw Ji-won, her eyes brightened. She lowered her massive head, and Ji-won pressed her forehead against the warm scales. "You came for me?" Velra's thoughts whispered. "Always," Ji-won replied. "That's what family does." "They died. All of them died." "Yes." Tears fell down Ji-won's face. "They chose to. For you. Because you were worth it." Velra made a sound like grief itself. A dragon's mourning is ancient and terrible. The entire colony felt it in their bones. The colony had built a memorial while Ji-won recovered. 12 statues facing the mountains. Each one showed a different person. Hyunwoo with his calm strength, Taeyang with his cocky grin, Minji with her gentle hands. All of them frozen in stone, remembered forever. Under each statue was a plaque with a name and a single word: family. Ji-won visited the memorial every day. She would sit there for hours talking to the statues like they could hear. Maybe they could. Maybe somewhere they knew that their sacrifice mattered. The Galactic Council was in chaos. What the 12 humans did broke every law, every treaty, every principle of civilized conduct. Earth's representatives stood before the Council to answer for humanity's actions. "They committed acts of war," one council member accused. "They destroyed military installations, killed soldiers, attacked a sovereign world." "Yes," the Earth representative agreed. "They did. After the Kral started it. After the Kral kidnapped a sentient being. After the Kral threatened to destroy a peaceful colony. My people tried to report this through proper channels. The Council did nothing. So 12 humans decided to fix the problem themselves. That is not how civilized species behave. Perhaps not. The representative looked around the chamber. But humanity tried civilization first. We tried diplomacy. We tried patience. None of it worked. So we did what we've always done when civilization fails. We protected our own. You cannot set this precedent. If every species takes justice into their own hands, then maybe the council should work faster. The representative's voice was hard. Maybe you should protect innocent beings instead of debating for months while they suffer. The Kral took someone humanity loved. Humanity took her back. If that makes us uncivilized, so be it. But it makes us loyal. It makes us reliable. It makes us the kind of ally you want and the kind of enemy you fear. The council debated for months. In the end, they took no action against humanity. The precedent was dangerous, yes, but making an enemy of humanity was more dangerous. The Kral Dominion collapsed. Without their emperor and with their homeworld's infrastructure shattered, the empire broke apart. Regional governors fought each other for power. Species they had conquered saw their chance and rebelled. Within a year, the Kral Empire was nothing but scattered warlords and broken dreams. Some blamed humanity, others called it justice. But everyone learned the same lesson. Do not threaten what humans love. The story spread across the galaxy. It was told in 1,000 different languages. Some versions were accurate, some were exaggerated. But all of them carried the same message. Humans could be your best friends or your worst nightmare. The choice was yours. Velra grieved for months. She blamed herself. If she had been stronger, if she hadn't been captured, the 11 wouldn't have died. She told Jiwan this every day. "Stop," Jiwan finally said one evening. They sat in the clearing as the sun set. "Stop disrespecting their choice." "What?" "They chose to save you. They weighed the cost and decided you were worth it. By drowning in guilt, you're saying they were wrong, that their sacrifice meant nothing." Jiwan's voice was fierce. "They died doing the most human thing possible, protecting family. Don't you dare dishonor that." Velra was silent for a long time. Then she said, "Tell me about them. Help me remember them properly." So Jiwan did. Every night, she would tell stories about Hyunwoo's quiet strength, about Tai Yang's terrible jokes, about Minji's gentle hands, about Daeho's love of machines, about all of them. Children from the colony would come to listen. They would ask questions. What was Sung-ho like? How did Hana grow her gardens? Did Kwan really hate fighting? The stories kept the 11 alive in memory, and slowly, Velra began to heal. Humanity's reputation changed across the galaxy. They were no longer just the friendly species or the peaceful newcomers. They were something more complex. Other species became more careful around humans. Trade deals were honored more strictly. Diplomatic messages were answered faster. Nobody wanted to be the next example. But some species also drew closer to humanity. If humans were this loyal to their friends, then being humanity's friend was valuable. Earth received more alliance requests in 1 year than in the previous century. The galaxy had remembered what humans were beneath their peaceful surface. Persistence hunters, tool makers, warriors who could cross galaxies for emotional reasons. Dangerous, unpredictable, fiercely loyal. Jiwan spent the next years writing. She compiled everything about the mission, every detail, every sacrifice. She wrote a book called The 12 Who Loved. She traveled to other worlds, speaking at universities and council meetings. She made sure the galaxy understood that the 11 didn't want war. They tried peace first. Only when all else failed did they choose violence. "We're not monsters," she told a room full of alien students. "We're a species that loves deeply. That's our strength and our curse." We can be your greatest allies. We will stand with you against impossible odds. We will share our technology, our culture, our friendship. But if you betray that friendship, if you hurt those we love, then you will learn why humanity survived on a death world." "Why?" a student asked. "Because we never give up. Because we turn our environment into weapons. Because we can chase prey until it drops from exhaustion. Because we throw things with lethal accuracy. Because we're creative and stubborn, and we value love over survival." She smiled sadly. The crawl learned this lesson. Don't make us teach it again. On Earth, in the Garden of Heroes, where humanity remembered its greatest people, 12 new names were added. Not in the military section, not with generals and soldiers, but in a new section. The 12 who loved. The inscription read, "They were not warriors. They were not soldiers. They were civilians who chose to fight when fighting was necessary. They crossed the galaxy to save one being because love demanded it. They died so that others might live. They remind us that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our intelligence. It is our capacity to love so fiercely that we will burn galaxies to protect it." Children on Earth learned their story. Every human child knew about the 12, about ordinary people who did extraordinary things, about how love could make you stronger than armies. On the 10th anniversary of the assault, something incredible happened. Velra laid an egg. Dragons rarely reproduce. In her 8,000 years, Velra had never laid an egg. But now, using ancient magic that few remembered, she created one, and within it, she placed something precious. "What is it?" Jiwan asked, touching the warm shell. "Memory," Velra replied. "Dragons can pass knowledge through eggs. Genetic memory. I have given this egg the memories of the 11, their courage, their love, their sacrifice. When it hatches, my child will carry them forward." "They'll live again?" "In a way. Not as themselves, but their legacy will continue. Dragons live for millennia. My child will remember the 11 for thousands of years, will tell their story, will make sure the galaxy never forgets." Jiwan wept. It was a gift beyond measure. The egg hatched 3 years later. The wormling was small, barely bigger than a horse, with scales that shimmered between colors. It looked at Jiwan with ancient eyes and spoke its first words. "Mother," it said to Velra, then, looking at Jiwan, "Aunt." The colony celebrated for days. They had lost so much but gained something too, a new beginning, a living memorial. Jiwan grew old on Terminus 7. She never left. This was home. This was where the 11 had started their impossible journey. This was where their story would always be remembered. Every evening, as the sun set, she would sit in the clearing with Velra and the wormling. They would watch the stars emerge and remember. "Do you think they knew?" Jiwan asked one evening. She was old now, her hair white, her body frail. "That they would change everything?" "They knew they might die," Velra replied. "They chose love anyway. That's what makes humans beautiful and terrifying." "We're not special," Jiwan said. "We're just stubborn." "No," the wormling said. Its voice was young but carried echoes of the 11. "You're human, and that's more dangerous than any weapon." In the distance, children played around the 12 statues. New generations who had never met the 11 but knew their stories, who understood that ordinary people could do impossible things when love demanded it. The galaxy was different now, more careful, more respectful, more aware of what happened when you threatened human family. And in the scattered remnants of the Kral Empire, parents told their children stories, warnings really. "Beware the humans," they would say. "They seem kind. They smile and trade and make friends easily, but never threaten what they love." Because humans don't fight to win. They fight to make sure you remember forever. They fight to leave scars so deep that your children's children will still fear them. The 12 humans had declared war on an empire with no army, no support, no chance of winning. And they won. Not through strength or numbers, but through the most human trait of all, the refusal to abandon family, no matter the cost. Their names were remembered, their sacrifice honored, their lesson eternal. Jiwan died at 97, surrounded by friends and family. Her last words were, "Tell them I'm coming." Velra mourned as only a dragon could, her grief echoing across the system. But she also celebrated, because Jiwan had lived well, had loved deeply, had honored the 11 with every day of her life. The wormling, now grown to full size, took up the task of telling the story. For 1,000 years it traveled the galaxy, speaking to any who would listen, keeping the memory alive. And in every port, on every world, the story was the same. 12 humans loved a dragon. An empire took her away. The 12 crossed the galaxy and burned that empire to ash. Why? Because they were human. And humans, when they love with a ferocity that can reshape the stars. The galaxy had learned its lesson. It would not forget. Do not mistake human kindness for human weakness. They are not the same thing. Not at all.